Let's talk about Sarah Palin right now. We showed a little bit of Barbara Walters. Here was Sarah Palin on Oprah.
That was a seminal, defining moment for you, that interview.
The campaign said, right on, good, you're showing your independence, this is what America needs to see. And it was a good interview. And, of course, I'm thinking, if you thought that was a good interview, I don't know what a bad interview was.
A little bit of bluntness there from Sarah Palin. The book is out, 415 pages, David Brooks. It looks like there's a fair amount of score settling, and the combat with the McCain campaign aides has continued straight through the weekend.
Yeah, she's a joke. I mean, I just can't take her seriously. We've got serious problems in the country. Barack Obama's trying to handle war. We just had a guy elected Virginia governor who's probably the model for the future of the Republican Party, Bob McDonnell. Pretty serious guy, pragmatic, calm, kind of boring. The idea that this potential talk show host is considered seriously for the Republican nomination, believe me, it'll never happen. Voters, Republican primary voters, are just not going to elect the talk show host.
By Rudy Giuliani taking her seriously this morning.
Well, Rudy, where do we go with this? I think he has no choice but to take her seriously. Everyone at this stage in the process is trying to appeal to everyone else. Lamar Alexander was quoted in the paper this morning as saying, well, she's interesting. And that's what Bob McDonnell doesn't have. She's interesting. She is the current, politics' current example of the shiny, flashing thing, you know, the balloon boy. It's something that we're into at this moment. And you know what? She is interesting. And she does represent a lot of people who normally aren't interested in politics. And therefore, she can't be ignored.
She may represent a threat to the Republican Party. If she's the...
In your dreams.
No, I'm listening to David Brooks here. If she's a joke, if the Republican Party is serious about a joke, that will reflect not so well upon itself. There's a Palin gap. 76% of Republicans say they'd like to see her be a national political figure. Only 45% of all Americans believe that. There's a 31-point gap there. Up to 71% of people polled don't believe she's qualified to be president. So the more serious she is taken by Lamar Alexander, Rudy Giuliani, and anybody else out there that's a Republican, it's not going to reflect well on the party itself.
One of the questions, though, is can she use this book tour, George Will, to bring that number down? The number of people who say she just can't be taken seriously as a presidential candidate.
How big is the undecided element about Sarah Palin at this point? I mean, what are you working with here? If conservatives of a sort are looking for a populist, they've got Mike Huckabee, who's mounting a big campaign and is far ahead of Sarah Palin among those at this early stage expressing a preference. Some conservatives think they have found in Sarah Palin a Republican William Jennings Bryan. Now, why they want someone who lost the presidency 3 times, I do not know.
You know, I think that she should have her say. I don't think anyone ever got elected president because of a book. And I agree with David on this. You talk to Republicans, and they say they voted for Obama because Sarah Palin was John McCain's pick. That was John McCain's justification. And I've heard it, and I think you've heard it from Republicans time and time again. So I don't think she will work in the Republican Party, but you know she's going to give it a try. I think the book sales are going to be astronomical.
Of course, but let's just point out, as the girl at the table, I feel like I can just say you cannot underestimate the degree to which women will be drawn to her story, and that's who she's speaking to. These are people who are ignored, who nobody counts into their thinking. It's why she's appealing to Hillary Clinton. It's why when she made her own announcement, remember she talked to use the term glass ceiling back in the summer. Don't underestimate that factor.
Sure, but you can be drawn to somebody's story and buy their book and read their book. That doesn't mean you want them to be president. Or
well, you know,
you're drawn to them to lead. I think those are 2 different realms for people.
But Dave, why don't you take on David Corn's question about whether this, taking away from her the personality, this whole Palinism that we've seen, what impact does that have on the party going forward?
Well, there is a populism in both the Democratic and Republican parties, which is against Wall Street, against intellectuals, against Washington, against New York, against the coasts. But if you look at the sort of populism that has won in this country, it is not William Jennings populism, which is hostile and negative, which Sarah Palin sometimes is. It is the populism that is Ronald Reagan-esque, which is simply, we're for small towns, but we're not angry at the big cities. The anger turns people off. Representing small towns is fine. But what she does, which is turning into a hostility toward intellectualism in general, that just doesn't work.
The question is whether, the Americans want a rogue president. Mitt Romney has a book coming out. It probably won't sell as much in the spring, called The Case for American Greatness. Do we want to...
She's going to try to pick up on David Brooks's themes there.
Obviously, maybe you helped him with that. I don't know. You can reveal that when you want to. But, Sarah Palin is indeed promoting herself, and this idea that she's not just even a maverick, she's beyond maverickness. She's going for rogueness. And I think that's not a very settling sentiment for a lot of people in this country. It may be good for talk shows and to debate, but she doesn't really have, I think, the steady hand that people are going to want to see in a president anytime in the near future.
Do you realize 2 years from now we'll be up to our eyeballs in the Iowa caucuses? And I don't think that at that point, when we have a real rich array of Republican candidates, that she is going to loom large. This is what happens in the vacuum of a third year out.
And that is the last word.